Hate that I'm even asking this, but understandably it's been on my mind. I'm a 28-year-old female who is almost done with medical school. I was just diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a couple of months ago, and although my symptoms are fairly mild for now, it's an unpredictable disease. I have had epilepsy my entire life. Literally, no one can tell I have these issues. I'm very private about my health. Like, I hide my seizure medications when guys are over, and not to boast, but I have a decent body and have depth of character and various talents. However, I can feel myself starting to accept that most guys are going to reconsider me when I tell them. Please don't spare my feelings and be honest. I'm a tough cookie. Multiple sclerosis is more serious than telling a guy I have seizures sometimes, which my previous boyfriends never seemed to mind. Thanks, you all. Story 1. When I met my wife, she had a near debilitating post-traumatic stress disorder. It was so extreme that it triggered a potassium dumping disorder, and so when she gets too anxious for too long, her hands will start to cramp and she'll get fatigued. For about the last year, she's had a compounding gastric disorder, which gives her fun little pancreatic flare-ups coupled with extremely reduced pancreatic exocrine function. We've been in hospitals more often than at home, and watching TV more often than going for walks. I've exited my industry and started driving DoorDash so that I can work around the COVID visiting hours at the hospitals. And you know what? I'm not going anywhere, and I'm always going to be there holding my wife's hand. Story 2. My wife and I have been together for 15 years. She has quinolone toxicity, and if you are in the medical field, you know exactly what that means. You know that she, more often than not, cannot move without being in pain. When we met, she was healthy and we were active. We used to walk by the river. She loved wearing high heels and going out to concerts, getting dressed up and spending the evening on the town. She now has to wear hearing aids at 35, special socks for her ankles and joints. These days, she cannot be on her feet for more than a few hours. Some days are better than others, but more often than not, we do not go anywhere or do anything because of her pain. In the beginning, it made me bitter and resentful, angry, and at times regretful. But I woke up and became a better version of myself. I know for a fact I will outlive her. Her condition is not going to get better. It is getting progressively worse, but I love her more than life itself. I sacrifice everything to make her happy, to make her days as easy as possible. If you can find someone that loves you more than they love themselves, then you will be okay. Story 3. It all depends on whether the juice is worth the squeeze. If I liked you, I would get involved, and if I fell in love with you, I would ride down the bumpy road of life with you until the end. Let's face it, nobody's getting out of here alive. Story 4. I was born with a very rare and incurable eye disorder. When my wife and I first met at age 21 and 22 respectively, my eyesight was already very bad, albeit much better than it is today. I went completely blind in my left eye when I was 14, and in my right eye, I had roughly 20/200 vision when I met my wife. My wife later told me one of the most important reasons she fell in love with me was the way I handled my situation. She told me how incredibly impressed she had been when she saw how positive and upbeat I was despite all the hardship I had faced throughout my life. There were truly a lot of tough situations I had to go through because of my disability, but I wasn't bitter. I had a very optimistic outlook, and my wife absolutely loved that. However, I knew of course that it wasn't quite that simple. While those early years were carefree, I knew that my disorder is progressive. I have always known this. There's only one end to this, and that's complete blindness. The only question is when it will arrive. For a long time, I had been able to push those bad thoughts away, but as my eyesight slowly but steadily continued to worsen throughout my 20s, this became impossible. When we were 28, we got married. However, roughly 1 year before the wedding, when we decided to seal the deal, I sat my wife down for a very serious conversation. I told her that up to that point, we had enjoyed an incredibly happy and stable relationship. However, if she was truly going to marry me, I wanted her to be 100% sure she could handle the future. I said, "You know I'm going to be fully blind one day, and many things are going to change. Things won't be the way they are today." I felt horrible about forcing my wife into that conversation, also because I was scared to death that she might decide against me. I don't think I could have handled that emotionally. However, I felt like it was the ethically right thing to do. If my wife was going to do this, she had to be aware of what she was getting herself into. I asked my wife not to give me an answer yet, but instead to think about it for 2 to 3 months. Then we'd talk again. 2 to 3 months later, we had a longer and even more serious conversation. In fact, it was probably one of the toughest conversations of my life. There was quite a lot of crying on both ends. However, my wife's answer was clear. After having thought about it very long and hard, she decided that she wanted to go through with it. She told me that she was scared of the future, but that she believed we'll be able to handle it together thanks to our deep love. We've now been married for 3 years, and my eyesight has continued to worsen. I now need a white cane to walk around outside, just to give you a rough idea. However, we are still very much in love. We have settled into a new routine. My wife has become very good at helping me in various ways, and of course, I try my best to be as independent as possible. All of this is to say, my wife is the most wonderful, devoted, loyal, and amazing person I've ever met. After all the things she's done for me, I'd be a total hypocrite to reject her or really any woman because of a disability. My wife has taught me so much about love and compassion, and she can be sure that I will always be there for her and with her, no matter what happens. However, even if I were to lose her for some reason, hypothetically, I don't think I would ever reject a woman for a disability or a medical condition such as yours. Although that woman wouldn't be my wife, I feel like the two are still connected somehow. You see, as someone who is interested in Buddhism, I believe that we are all on this earth to learn certain things. What my wife has given me is not just a gift, but I believe it's also a lesson. It's a way the universe is telling me to act a certain way, so to speak. For example, if my wife passed away and I met a new woman who suffered from a physical disability, I'm sure my wife would want me to give that woman a chance and look beyond her disability to see the person, because that is what my wife did with me from the very beginning. Story 5. This is a pretty difficult thing to gauge. The guys that don't care will tell you what you want to hear so they can date you for as long as they aren't bored. The guys that bail early either don't care and don't want the trouble, or they care a lot but know themselves and want to spare you the heartache and pain of committing and then burning out of caretaker mode and leaving. Then there are overly optimistic guys who commit without thinking things through, and you think you're in a good spot until the first sign of stress happens, and he bails, and you're on your own with a broken heart. Personally, as a man who has dated people with complex health issues, I'd rather know upfront, probably after you sleep together but before or during any commitment talk, and then judge how people react over the long run. Don't hide anything and bring them along your journey. If they bail early, it's probably a good thing. Story 6. It really depends. I had an ex claiming she had mental health issues. I never confirmed this, and she would block any attempt to talk about it. She refused to get professional help and then kept talking about how depressed she was. I don't care what mental health problems a woman has. What matters to me is the way she deals with them. Story 7. That's a seriously tough question. Do you love someone enough to essentially give up on what you want to do with your life to care for them? With something incurable and debilitating, I'd probably find my way out, honestly. Story 8. This is going to sound bad, but I won't date anyone with any health issues. I am a widower and I spent years watching the person I love slowly get worse until they finally died. Her health issue itself wasn't life-threatening, but it drastically affected her life until she developed the illness that finally killed her. I don't think I could go through that again by choice. Story 9. Brutally honest here, serious health issues or disabilities are a deal breaker for me. Dating is one thing, but I don't think I'd stick it out with someone in the long run. Knowing I'd have to deal with issues for years is just overwhelming, especially if a lot of responsibility is needed to keep the health issue in check. It would be different if we were already married and my partner came down with something. I can accept that. No one is going to get through life unscathed. But if we are just starting to get to know each other or if we are not really committed yet, then it's a huge liability, especially knowing that there are many other suitors without these kinds of issues. I'm sure a lot of guys wouldn't mind taking the risk and responsibility, but it really is a tough pill to swallow. Story 10. My wife has a severe metal allergy. Her skin would break out in boils and sores if anything nickel or some other form of alloy touches it. She told me about it right from the start, And it didn't bother me in the least because she is the most amazing person that I've ever met. We had to get special wedding rings made from gold-infused wood. And since there is not much awareness for metal-free items where we live, they were difficult to make and not cheap. Apart from appliances, all of our household items are made from either wood, stone, marble, or compostable plastic. No regrets. Story 11. I don't know. My mother is currently going through issues with mobility due to 3 car accidents. All not her fault. She doesn't handle it well and really plays the victim all the time. If I were to date someone like that, and the relationship was getting serious, I'd like to know. It would be really hard for you, yes, but those who care are also affected. I read another guy's story that said his attitude towards it helped his wife love him more. I think your attitude towards it would be the deal breaker. If you don't let it define you or let it become an excuse, then I don't think it would be a problem, at least for me to say. Sure, you'll have rough days physically and mentally, but someone who cares would understand. If it doesn't burden you, then it wouldn't burden someone else with the right mindset. If it were me, I'd take the initiative to adjust activities or dates to something we'd both enjoy that I could do. I'm currently trying to find ways to do this with my mother. She can't walk much and my father works long hours. I'm also the only child that really visits her and she can't go anywhere due to COVID-19. I take her out to eat sometimes and just how happy and excited she is can cure anyone's depression. Story 12. I used to date a girl who had leukemia. Didn't faze me. I loved her. We dated for a little while. I thought she was the one. I treated her as best as I could. We never had any arguments. I just liked spending time with her. Then one day, she had some hallucinations. I can't remember what she called them. I didn't mind and asked if I could come over and keep her company. She was never the same after that. Then one day, she broke up with me and couldn't even give me a reason. I don't know, man. I never cared about her health issues. I just wanted to be with her. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. Story 13. One of my best friends from high school has multiple sclerosis among other health issues. She just got engaged. Personally, I believe it's something that can bring people together. In a relationship, you support each other, depend on each other. I believe that when someone needs that extra bit of support, it can make you closer and deepen the love you share. You state your worry while in the same breath saying everything that makes you amazing. Doing all that and living as normal a life as possible in spite of your illness just makes you all the more amazing. Chin up, you've got this. Story 14. Neurorehabilitation physiotherapy student here. I just wanted to say, I am so sorry to hear you are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. But do not forget, you can still have an amazing and long life, and I have seen plenty of female patients with very understanding partners. Do not worry. Story 15. I don't really know anything about multiple sclerosis, but if it's quickly degenerative and likely to take you early, I would be hesitant. I could probably be convinced if you were the most amazing person I'd ever met and thought any time with you is a blessing, but that's case dependent. You'll find that every guy has a certain threshold. Some will follow you to the grave, others will get scared off by a sneeze. Story 16. My mom has multiple sclerosis, got diagnosed at the same age as you did. She had just started dating my dad at the time, and he said he didn't care. He stuck by her and still does. They are still happy together and he calls her his soulmate regularly. It's ridiculously cute. That said, he told us that regarding multiple sclerosis, even though he read up on it, he had no clue what he was in for, and neither did she. Some guys may err on the side of caution because of that. Can be a brutal disease. My mom was diagnosed with the worst-case scenario, basically, and that was 35 years ago. She is now in an electric wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down. Still, her mind is clear, she can speak clearly, and she still has limited use of her hands. She also has a great attitude about everything, so like you, she has a ton of friends and managed to keep them. Taking good care of your body is absolutely paramount in making the most out of your life with multiple sclerosis. Like for many of us, we can coast by on bad habits until a heart attack sneaks up on us or diabetes does, but multiple sclerosis patients do not have that luxury. You are a step ahead because your body already has a lifetime of fitness to fall back on. So keep that up for as long as possible. It doesn't need to be cheerleading. Just make sure those muscles are strong for as long as you can keep them going. Also, look into food and how it can aggravate or alleviate multiple sclerosis symptoms. A colleague of mine who got diagnosed 10 years ago has been trying the Wim Hof method. He has problems regulating his body temperature and has been seeing results with that. In any case, in my opinion, most of us are walking landmines. Who will tell if one day we will be diagnosed with something that will end up killing us? Some people get brain aneurysms, other people get cancer, and some people get multiple sclerosis. Like someone else said, none of us are getting out of here alive. Story 17. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 18, a couple of weeks before my university exams. So I know how you feel. So far, I've had it for 2 years, and I can tell you that the medications available for multiple sclerosis now are much better than what we had before. It's much more likely you will have a decent quality of life than someone diagnosed 20 years ago. If I met someone with multiple sclerosis, I wouldn't walk away because I would have someone who I can relate to on a deeper level.